Hello, and welcome to Rogers Place, home of the now done second round. The Golden Knights are moving on to the conference final. Fourth time in 6 years. Fourth time in 6 years. Let that sink in. Pretty wild. Pretty unbelievable that they're able to do that. Going back to the conference final yet again, dispatching the team that many, not quite including myself, but close, many believe the Golden Knights would not be able to get past. It's the second time in a row in the postseason that the Golden Knights have been, when they've been fairly significant underdogs, they were able to make it happen, beating Colorado 2 years ago, beating this Edmonton team here, and now it's on to another Western Conference final. Again, they will have home ice advantage heading into that one. That means games 1 and 2 will be at T-Mobile Arena. We will find out the opponents tomorrow, where Seattle or Dallas. Still cannot believe it's possibly Seattle, and what a wild situation that would be if it ends up being Seattle, or if it's Dallas, repeat of a couple years back. Not try and take them on again. And Pete, there's some stories, but let's stick with tonight. Let's stick with today. What a great job responding to a poor first period, or at least somewhat of a poor first period. The Golden Knights come out, and in the second period, we've talked about it over and over and over again throughout this entire series, from the moment it started to the games that were good, to the games that were bad, to all of it. The entire way through, we continued talking about it over and over and over again. And here we are in a second period, down a goal, and the Golden Knights start dominating possession of the puck, grabbing the puck, getting into the offensive zone, holding it in the offensive zone, and doing exactly what they had to do. There are so many layers to what came from that, what led up to that, what ultimately happens inside of that. It ends up being a couple of kind of goofy bounces, but Jonathan Marchessault, a player who at times has not necessarily been there trying to take some of these shots from the outside, all of a sudden, he's right in front of the goal. He taps in the one, he taps in the second one, and here we are in a situation where this guy's got 4 goals in this building in just 3 games, where he is right in front of the goal. And of course, he ends up with another one a little bit later with what he normally does, which is taking that shot off the wing there on the 4-on-4 situation. Natural hat trick in a second period in a playoff game, in a closeout game, just absolutely brilliant. Like, arguably maybe the best individual performance by an offensive player since probably Janmark. Maybe there's a Pacioretty one in there that I'm forgetting, but really, really impressive stuff. Mark Stone had a game-winning goal in Colorado. Maybe we'll go back to that. But, like, the name of the game in this series, it was all there the whole time. And it was going to continue to happen as long as the Golden Knights were able to hold the puck. And I thought the move to move Nick Waugh up to that line with Carlson and Smith paid off in a huge way in that second period, because for whatever reason in this series, we didn't get a lot of Stone, Stevenson, and Howden holding the puck in the offensive zone. We were not getting a ton out of Carrier doing it until a little bit more today. We were getting a lot of it coming from Eichel, and I thought they needed a little bit more from somewhere else. And to move Nick Waugh up the lineup, put Bluger in. I'll talk about Bluger's impact a little bit. Bruce kind of talked it up in the postgame today. To move Waugh up, now all of a sudden, and if you really go back and watch it, it was one shift after another, from Eichel to Carlson to Eichel to Carlson to Eichel to Carlson, back and forth over and over. And when that was happening, Vegas was hemming them in over and over and over again. And what you saw is exactly what we talked about before this series started. You don't even need to generate the most dangerous of chances to beat this team. They will make mistakes. There's a couple of screenshots floating around. I forget who tweeted it, of where Cody Ceci is on 2 of the goals. Both of the Marchessault goals that are tap-ins, he's nowhere near the front of the goal. And that's because the longer you hold it, the more their defense is going to come apart. They're not a very structured team. They're constantly looking to fly the zone. They're constantly looking for all of these different things that have plagued the Golden Knights in the past, where when we play a little bit more of a structured defensive team, just holding the puck in the offensive zone doesn't necessarily make anything happen. And what then ends up happening is we give up rushes the other way. That's not what was going to happen in this series. They were going to drown eventually if the Golden Knights held the puck long enough. And for Nick Waugh and Jack Eichel in particular, they were spectacular making that happen. And that's why this game goes from a 2-1 deficit to 4-2 at the end of the second period. Vegas absolutely dominant. Then we get to a third period where we can possibly debate how they ended up playing in that third period. I thought it got better as the period went on. A number of different dangerous chances early in the period. A post, there's a whole bunch going on. I'll talk about the penalty. I'm not changing my mind. It was a 4-minute penalty. Everyone's going to get pissed off at me, but I'll talk about it in a minute. I've watched it 100 times now. I've talked to a whole bunch of different people. We'll get to that later because nobody gives a shit really about that at this moment. I don't think it would have mattered anyway. I'll say that right off the top. But in that third period, what I did like was they were able to get out and then push forward. That's the one part that I really thought was getting consistent, is that there was never easy zone entry, even though Edmonton was getting the puck into the zone as the period went along, and they were able to get these chances. And then Aiden Hill had to stand in there and make some things happen. He did it. What a game for him. 39 saves in a row after giving up the first two. Like, there's an argument to potentially pull him after those first two goals. I'm happy they didn't. I would have been disagreeing with that decision. Whoa, I almost fell down. I think that would have been a bad decision. However, 2 goals and 2 shots, you can make that argument. You can potentially make that argument to get him out of there. Nope, stuck with him. He saves 39 in a row. A couple of unbelievable ones late in that third period that really changed the momentum of that game. You could see and feel the Oilers kind of just demoralizing as that period went on, even though they have the zone time, even though they have the different opportunities and they're getting these chances on goal and they're getting a lot of these to Aiden Hill, they're not able to get the second chances. They were not able to win in front. And for me, in a big way, that was the key to this game, is that the pucks that landed in front of the goal, Vegas only had 22 shots in this game. And 2 of them were shots that ended up landing directly on the goal line or like right next to the goal line. Vegas won the races to them. Edmonton did not. Partially, I bring that to defensive structure. Vegas's defensive structure has been excellent all postseason long, even in the games where they have had their tough times. The first game against Winnipeg, the 2 losses in this series, even in those games, we have seen the defensive structure has stayed sound, has stayed compact. They started because they couldn't get anything through the middle, because they couldn't generate anything right in front. They started to just chuck the pucks from the outside. And now we look at it, 5 teams left in the postseason. 2 of them really, really, really rely on pucks chucked from the outside. That is their game plan. I like Vegas's chances against both of them. That's Dallas and Carolina. But I don't want to get in front of my too far out in front of myself. I'm going to continue focusing on this series and going to what's maybe the most untalked about thing on the series, and something that I'm going to write about, whether it's tonight. I think I am probably just going to go ahead and write it tonight because I'm pretty wound up and I don't see myself sleeping anytime soon. We'll see if I decide to do a Twitter space after this or not. A lot of people on this one, so maybe we will continue talking about this, and maybe I will write it tomorrow morning. I don't know, but I'm going to tell you what that is after I tell you about Kondler and Associates CPAs, who are the sponsors of every post-game Periscope this season, and we've got at least 4 more coming up, probably more than that, because I would be surprised if it's only 4. And even if it's only 4, then there are probably going to be some more after that, especially if it's 4 bad ones, and I would not be super angry. But that's not the point of this story right now. I want to tell you about Kondler Associates CPAs. They're fantastic tax experts that can help you with all of your tax needs. Go to KondlerCPA.com, KondlerCPA.com. Tell them SinBin sent you. They'll hook you up with a free consultation. They are spectacular, and trust me, the Kondler family is having a party tonight back in Vegas. I promise you of that. So the most underrated thing of this series is, if you go back and watch this series, and we saw it happening live, every single time Bruce Cassidy made the decision to put William Karlsson on the ice, they ran from it. The Oilers ran from it. No McDavid, no Draisaitl most of the time. And what it led to is it led to Vegas able to dictate the matchup so much more than you should be able to in a road series. Now, that doesn't mean that it went perfectly in this series, because it didn't. At different times, McDavid did get loose. Draisaitl did get loose. Obviously, the 6 goals in the first 2 games. But In this particular game, they came in and said, all right, we're going to keep him away. And what Cassidy was able to do was he was able to take that second period, utilize that in Vegas's favor by going back and forth between Eichel and McDavid, especially out of those timeouts under 14, under 10, and under 6. I think he went to them, all three of them, taking those opportunities, running Karlsson back out, and knowing you're probably not getting McDavid, and you're almost certainly not getting McDavid and Draisaitl together. That's how you control matchups in the defensive zone, or in any zone in a road game. That's a huge testament to how good William Karlsson was against Connor McDavid, that not only did they chase that matchup in the games at home, but then when they came here, the Edmonton Oilers steered away from it. And Woodcroft said, if they had their druthers, that's the matchup they would have liked. And I did not want to give it to them, was the part I'll add in on the end. That's basically what happened. That is what you're looking for. And that was spectacular for the Golden Knights. Then on top of that, with the question I asked about Karlsson, Cassidy went to Bluger and said, look, then once we have the situation where we now don't have that matchup, now we're able to go to Bluger, and that guy can win a faceoff, can check, can keep guys to the outside, can keep that speed down and make things happen. That's why he's in the game. It's not only Wah going up, and he made a huge impact, in my opinion, on that line with Karlsson and Smith, but Bluger gave them a little bit more security blanket, understanding that we're probably seeing less of Karlsson on McDavid in this particular game, and I think we were probably going to see less of it in the next game, or last game, back even at home, because they knew that's the matchup they're going to run away from. So for Bluger to be able to come in and do a good enough job holding it down, getting it done, that is a massive impact that player is having that isn't necessarily going to get a ton of news for it. For me, it mostly goes to Karlsson, though. The fact that we got to a point where the matchup balance was in Vegas's favor and they did not have to load up a line to do it. That is how you beat the Edmonton Oilers. That's how the Golden Knights beat the Edmonton Oilers. They were fantastic at taking advantage of that particular opportunity and making it come to life, making that happen. On the penalty, I will just flat out talk about it. I know what they said on the broadcast. I've seen it. I've watched it 100 times. To me, Nick Waugh takes a backhand swipe at the puck. He does not get a clean swipe at it. It is not a clean follow-through on the play. It's a different motion that it then comes up. It rides up Ekholm's stick. It catches him in the face. To me, that's a high stick. He's bleeding. It ends up being 4 minutes. I don't care what anybody says on the broadcast, on the comments, any of it. To me, that is a 4-minute high stick. I promise you, I would be saying the exact same thing if it happened to the Golden Knights player. I promise you that. That is one of the things that I do not lean one way or the other on. Penalties, I don't. I believe a penalty is a penalty. We must call it. To me, that was not a follow-through. You can say it all over you want, as many times as you want. To me, it's not a follow-through. He's using his backhand. That play would not have led to the stick coming up. The stick would not have come up in a natural way if he had hit the puck. It's a stick check play. It should have been a 4-minute penalty. That being said, as I said earlier, I believe the Golden Knights penalty kill came along as we went through this series. I thought they got better and better and better as this went on, and I thought it made a lot of the decision-making that the Oilers were making real simply earlier in the series a lot more difficult. And had there been that 4-minute penalty, I honestly, truly do believe the Golden Knights would have killed it. Maybe they give up one, but they would not have given up two. I really don't believe they would have given up two. So that would have been kind of, to me, looking at that, I was actually kind of sitting there in a weird way for the storyline saying, oh, this would be nice in a situation to, okay, let's kill off one more and kind of finally, oh, look at this guy coming in saying I'm wrong. The guy who has not been right the entirety of the series or all season long. Way to go, Scott. Still think I'm wrong, which further proves that I am definitely not wrong. Nonetheless, sorry, I had to dunk on Scott a little bit because it's been a lot of tweets towards me telling me that I'm way off, even though every single thing I've been pretty much spot on that he's debating. I'm not saying I've been spot on in the whole series. Definitely not. I thought there was a lot going to go different in this series. However, that's it. All right, enough about that. So I did like the Golden Knights making sure that their kill took that step in being a little bit more aggressive, making it a little bit harder, and making sure that it was going to kind of not be as easy for Edmonton as it went on. I think we saw that. And again, like I said, the 5-minute major, they end up only allowing one. And I didn't think that that was all that bad of a goal that they allowed. It gets caught up in the neutral zone. They get a free entry, and then McDavid's just really fucking fast. Like, it is what it is. In this particular case, like I said, for the storyline, I was a little bit like, let's get one more and let's finish this thing off with one more penalty kill to just kind of say, like, look, we made it. We did it. We finally beat the boss. Like the Bowser in N64, you swing them around and you throw them off. You got to do it like 3 times. You can't just do it once. And I thought that that was like an opportunity to finally, climb Mount Everest or whatever. Didn't need it. Nonetheless, didn't need. I saw a couple of people talking about handshakes before I talk about the handshakes, and they were interesting. And I talked to some players off the record, unfortunately, in the locker room, and I have some more information about some of that, and I'll share some of that with you right after I tell you that I'm here in Edmonton right now, way up north in Alberta right now because of Vegas Night and Day Heating and Cooling. They are a fantastic local company that is huge Golden Knights fans, and they can come out to your house and do a pre-maintenance summer special. Pre-summer maintenance special. I don't know why I said pre-maintenance. Pre-summer maintenance special where they check on your heating and cooling systems and make sure that it's all good. Make sure that everything's working because it's way better to deal with it before it breaks. Trust me, it's happened to me. It has broken. It had broken my old house and it sucks. So don't do that. And then there's even discounts if it is broken or if you need repairs or need a new one, whatever. Go to vkdac.com and tell them SinBin sent you. And you don't even have to do that. They'll give you the discounts anyway. However, it makes me feel better. And they're awesome for sending me here. And they're going to be sending me to Dallas or Seattle next, which is great. All right. So handshakes. Obviously, to me, the Draisaitl thing, yeah, I think if anybody's in their situation, maybe I'm probably not going to be thrilled with Pietrangelo in that spot. Okay, fine. That one, whatever. That one doesn't bother me. It's some of the other ones, one particular player, Nurse, that I don't think he was kind of, really into the handshakes. And I think at some point, like especially a player like him, you fought, you had your suspension, you had all of it, you played in the series, like your team wasn't quite good enough. You got to be able to kind of stand up, and this is hockey, and this is supposed to be part of that, which is, that's why we do the handshake lines. And I thought that they were a little bit more salty than you probably need to be, especially in the series where, let's be honest, like there's really no debate right now. Like there's really not. The Golden Knights were better. The Golden Knights were the better team in this series. There's not a lot of debate. That's what I've said many times. The best thing about 7-game series, we don't have to debate it. Whoever wins the series, unless there's a horse shit call that ruins the entire series. That's the only one that we've ever had. This is what is this? The 13th series or 12th series or whatever it is. There's been a lot. And the Golden Knights, always the better team wins in the series. So for me, that's where you have to eventually, and I think the Oilers will eventually come to that realization that, look, we just didn't have the same consistent level of play and level of depth that the other team did. And I think they got the lesser of the goaltending performances, which is a huge testament to the two guys that were in there for the Golden Knights. And there was a lot of talk about the goalie coach tonight after today's game. I don't think we've talked about him enough. Sean Burke this season had 5 guys. All of them got in there and looked pretty darn good in a very difficult situation across the entirety of the season. So he definitely deserves credit. I obviously think Cassidy's system deserves credit. Aiden Hill wanted to give credit to what he called the best D-core in the league. I think that's certainly got to be up there. Hard to debate that after you see what they're able to do in this series. They allowed 2 goals tonight to the Oilers. Now, granted, it's 41 shots, and there were some dangerous ones. And, you play that game 10 times. I do think they give up more than 2. But the fact is, we're 7 games. This is a 7-game series. We're 6 games in here. Vegas won 4 of them. And Vegas was better in 4 of them, in my opinion. They were better tonight. Vegas was better tonight because of the second period. And then once we get through that, now it's a 2-goal lead. You can play a little bit more of that conservative style and force them to come all the way through and take away any of those easy opportunities, which is something the Golden Knights have done really, really well all season long. I understand that there's been some blown leads. I understand all of that. But when they get in this situation, they play a very strong style of hockey that can make life very difficult on even the fastest and most electric offensive team we've pretty much ever seen in this league. Certainly the most electric power play. It's another thing that I talked to a number of different players in the locker room, and I'm not going to say because a lot of this was not on the record, but they were unbelievably complimentary of those two, McDavid and Draisaitl. It's basically like it's on another level. Like they're just an incredible pair of players that it's very, very hard to be consistent against. And just the awareness that is necessary is just unbelievable and how hard it has to be. Yeah. So Chris is right that it is pretty wild and ironic in many ways that the second period is the one that the Golden Knights come out and end up dominating. And really throughout this series, you think back, like basically the two Edmonton wins are basically born in the first period. They go well, make it happen in the first period, and then that's it. And they had basically won the game. Yeah, the too many men call. I was watching it very closely. Neither of them were too many men. One time there's two guys standing there and Vegas's fifth player plays the puck and the other guy's on, jumps back off, but he's certainly not in the play. There's no way to me that's too many men. And then the second one, they do play the puck. However, the players got a leg over the boards. To me, that's also a clean change. So I didn't think either of those were too many men. I thought the Draisaitl one where he's spinning around, I didn't think that was anything. So I do think it was a 4-minute high stick, but that's neither here nor there, and we'll let that go. But again, back to that second period. So the part of the second period that was troublesome for the Golden Knights throughout the course of this season is that when they're playing in a normal style, when they're playing the normal way they do, they're a little bit more comfortable in their own end. In this series, they were never going to be comfortable in their own end. It was never going to be something that they were going to be fine or happy or accept throughout this series. It was just a different style of game plan that we knew coming in. You cannot live in your own end against these guys. So first period, second period, third period, it really didn't make a difference because the long change wasn't going to make a difference other than it was just going to snowball the game one way or the other. And that is what we saw tonight, which is if Vegas is able to get the offensive zone time and then they're able to keep putting that pressure over and over and over again, if that is able to happen, the long change is going to make it harder for the Oilers to get off, harder for them to get that zone time going the other way, harder for them to flip the game around. That's what we saw tonight, which is it's just constant barrages of pressure. And again, the biggest part of it, and where I think we're going to be talking about in the next series, is once we get to this next series and hopefully potentially beyond that, when we play better defensive teams, whichever teams is next will be the best defensive team the Golden Knights have played outside of the one or two period games or whatever it was that Morrissey played in the first game. I thought they were pretty good. I think Winnipeg's defense is better than Seattle's if Morrissey's in. However, with Morrissey out, when Vegas really took over that series, and then this particular team, I don't think that these defenses are as strong. When we get to those types of teams, there's going to have to start being a little bit more creativity in the offensive zone, dominating underneath the goal line a little bit more, something we've seen at different times so far to this point in this postseason. Those things are going to have to happen to start generating the chances as opposed to just relying on this team, which is what happened and what we knew was going to happen, to kind of just stretch themselves apart and end up finding themselves out of position, and then you take advantage of those opportunities. That's not, I don't think, going to be the case as we move forward. We're going to have to start looking more at the rush stuff, all of those different things. How wrong do you feel about your opinion about this team at the beginning of the season? Not that much. I do think they've certainly gone farther than I would have expected. I think that there's always been a belief that I think that they're just horrific, and I don't fully understand where that comes from. I picked them to make the playoffs. I said it was going to be close. I'm very surprised that part of it. I am surprised that with the injuries that they went through, the consistency that they played. But once they got in the playoffs, I assumed they've got good enough players if they're healthy, which was a huge part of that. That might be the number one surprising thing for me. If you ask me what's the most surprising thing to me, it's that here we are and we have 0 injured skaters. None. Not a single injured skater at this point. I would have taken the under on that without question. Look at the entirety of last season, regular season. Look at the entirety of this regular season. It just didn't happen for very long stretches of time outside of maybe the first 15 to 20 games of the season. And then all of a sudden it fell off the cliff. Hopefully that does not happen again, knock on wood. But that's where the surprising part would come in. I thought that this team was an easy playoff team if you guaranteed me full health. I didn't think that was going to happen. That didn't happen. They end up doing a lot better than I thought. So in that respect, yes. But if you would have told me going into this season, you're playing the Jets and the Oilers, can they win those 2 series if you give me 100% full health and they bought at the deadline? Yes, I would have said that. Now, goalie, that one certainly surprises me. I can't believe, to be completely honest, sorry to Aiden Hill that I'm going to say this, but I can't believe we're here with Aiden Hill being the goalieing a team in a postseason game. Like, that's not something I saw coming. Certainly not halfway through the season would I have said I saw that coming. The more we learned about Bruce's system, I thought, yeah, okay, we could have seen that, but they allowed 41 shots. They allowed a bunch of high danger opportunities today, and he stood up to the test today. He was a big reason why they won this game, and that was not something I expected coming into the series. It was not something I expected coming into the season. And so now here we are going past this point that, and again, I'm not even sure that I ever made a pick. I think I would have said, yeah, maybe first or second round they go out. But again, it was mostly based on health. I didn't think that they were going to be able to stay healthy. They have. Here we go. I think they're very, very good when fully healthy. And here we are. We're doing it. So that's really all I've got on that. I've seen a couple questions. I can't find one to put up about who it would rather be. I think the storylines are fun either way. If it's Seattle, it's the 2 new teams. And I do think there are some parallels that I'm going to bring up if it does end up being Seattle, to kind of remind Golden Knights fans a little bit of what it was like when you were in that Seattle situation, and to understand that, like, if they win this game, they're very much legit. Like, we cannot overlook that team at all. Not that us doing it, whatever, that doesn't really matter. But to me, there's a massive parallel to Vegas, Winnipeg 2018 if we get to that. If it's Dallas, we've got a much different situation because we've got first time all postseason. We're looking at a goalie who I think is playing at that level. Granted, well, that's probably not true. Hellebuck was playing at that level coming in. So it's another goalie situation that we've seen before. We'll talk about that. I'm just very interested. If it's the Dallas series, they rely a little bit on that spray and pray. We know that the Pete DeBoer system relies on that. We know that the Pete DeBoer system can take away rush chances. We know that they can really gum up the neutral zone and make it very difficult. And biggest part for them is Vegas has won on depth so far. 2 rounds so far. They've won on depth. They have not they certainly didn't have the better top end players in this series. It was close in that first series, especially with we weren't sure what we were going to get of Stone at the beginning. We weren't sure what we were going to get out of Eichel in his first run. So we weren't sure. They used their depth to get to this point, and then, made sure that their game plan held up. I think the depth of Dallas is definitely concerning. The depth of Seattle is absolutely concerning because it's a much different style, and you got to deal with a much different group of matchups that's going to be very interesting. And I think the part that's going to come really into play over the course of the next series is we can't have some of the fall off that we've had from different players. So the period of time where Smith and Marsh still weren't scoring, that really cannot happen. Obviously, that comes to life here at the back end of the series. And now it's easy to look back and say, oh, well, they were perfectly fine. Stone's scoring has started to go down a little bit. That line has actually gone down quite a bit. And I thought their matchups weren't as difficult as what I would have expected coming in. So we aren't going to be able to have some of kind of I hate to use the word passengers because I don't necessarily think that's fair for some of these guys, but like, we're going to need more out of most players as we move forward, and possibly more offense from the defense when it gets a little bit more difficult to score, where this series we knew these group of forwards, whoever it happens to be on this particular day, are going to be able to get there and get the goals. I am a little bit surprised that they did not go with Campbell. It's not like it wasn't stunning to me that they went back to Skinner. They've done it multiple times. He's bounced back. He's been good at different times. So I can't say that was like shocking, but I was a little bit surprised in that he didn't get a start over the course of the entire series. And there has been a lot of good hockey in Jack Campbell's career against the Golden Knights. And again, he made the stops again that he needed to. So maybe a maybe that was an error. We'll see. Who is the MVP for the Golden Knights for each team, or who is the MVP on each team for the series that we just won? I'm not that worried. I don't even know that I have an MVP for the other team. I guess it's Connor. I don't even know. Maybe it's the defenseman. Now I can't even remember the names. Evan Bouchard. Like maybe it's him. He played 31 minutes tonight and had a whole bunch of shots and was certainly a huge part of their power play. Whatever. Don't worry about that. For me, there's two off for the Golden Knights, and that's Carlson and Eichel. I thought centers were where the Golden Knights were. It was going to be interesting to see how they were going to be able to match up with McDavid and Draisaitl. Were they going to be able to deal with McDavid and Draisaitl together, separate? They did both. The Golden Knights dealt with both of them. I thought Carlson did a great job defensively, making sure to shut that down as much as he possibly could. And to me, Eichel, on the opposite, he was the driver of getting the Golden Knights back into what they had to do. When there were periods of time where it wasn't going their way, when the puck was living in the offensive zone and Edmonton's side, that's where we would eventually get that shift. And he would utilize most of the time Jack having an entry, Jack making a play along the boards. Sometimes it was a back check play that he would make to break something up. He had good sticks in this series. Like he had a very, very good series, both offensively and defensively, that I think was basically like the tide stemmer. That's not even a real word. He's the one that flipped the game back into getting it to the Golden Knights game plan. And he was able to do this a number of different times to make sure that they were not sinking shift after shift after shift. We saw it in game 2. We saw it at times in game 4, specifically in the first period. It did not happen tonight, especially in the second period, because Eichel came out and made it happen. He's the one that was holding the puck in the offensive zone. He's the one that was doing that style of play that was helping them. Now, the question becomes, against these next two teams, it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same style of game. It's not going to be the same game plan. So it might have to be different players. That's where the depth is going to have to come through. I think they're going to need a little bit more out of Mark Stone moving forward, potentially a little bit more offensively out of Chandler Stevenson. I think that as that goes on, we're going to have to see what the matchup is and how it's going to go, but we've got some time to figure that out. Again, thanks to Kondler's and Associates CPAs for sponsoring every Periscope this season, and of course, to Vegas Night and Day Heating and Cooling for sending me here to Edmonton, and I will be off to either Dallas or Seattle next week. Excited about that, or maybe it's the end of the week. I don't know. Either way, somebody asked me earlier, when do I expect the next series to start? So Game 7 is tomorrow. For them, that is Monday. I guess so right now my clock says it is Monday. It's not Monday for everyone watching this, I'm assuming, but it is Monday when that Game 7 is. So that means either Wednesday or Thursday would likely be Game 1. I would guess it's probably more likely Thursday. I guess it is possible that it's Wednesday. However, that game will be at home. Then it would be 2 days later, almost certainly. There's not a lot going on at T-Mobile Arena, which is beneficial that we should have an every other day situation in the home games. But I do think this thing's going to get underway fairly quickly as they continue trying to move this thing along, because everybody knows the Stanley Cup playoffs are long. We're already a month in and we're only halfway home. But I'll end on that. Halfway home. 8 wins. Golden Knights are back in the conference final, 4th time in 6 years. They've only won 1 of the first 3. Let's try and get the second one. I like the matchup either way. I think the Golden Knights are favored either way, no matter who they play. I think it's a little bit of a better matchup against Seattle, but I think Dallas is beatable. There's a lot of what Dallas does that I think plays into Vegas's style. Seattle's a little bit more of a wild card because of that, because we don't necessarily know what the Golden Knights have done against the current style of Seattle. They're playing a little bit differently than they played in the regular season. Again, we'll get to that if we get to that. I'm going to put a tweet out, and if there's like 100 or so, I don't know, I'll put something out if we don't want to hop onto Twitter Spaces. I have to walk home, so I don't think we're going to do it. Maybe we'll do one tomorrow or something. I don't know. No, I'm canceling it. We're not doing it. It's too late. I got to walk back to the hotel. It's far enough away. No Twitter Spaces today. Enough of us have done this. We've got plenty of time. We got stuff to talk about. We will continue talking about it. I'll be at the airport tomorrow. We'll be back home. We'll maybe do one on, I don't know, Tuesday. We'll figure it out. I don't know. That's all. I got nothing else. That's it. Goodbye, Edmonton. Not having to come back here. I like that. Golden Knights have won, again, another trip here at Rogers Place to the conference finals. Happened in the bubble 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago now. And it happened again today, or 2 years ago, three, whatever. You know what I'm saying. Happened in the bubble. It's happening now. Don't have to Uber. It's close enough. Not going to Uber on a walkable way. It's like not even half a mile. I'll be off. That's it. We'll see you back in Vegas. Game 1, end of the week. That's it. 8 wins away, 8 down, 8 to go. Let's go. Keep it going. Here we go. Good night.